This Saturday, Indiana and Michigan State square off in the Brass Spittoon Game, where pride, history, and momentum collide. Fernando Mendoza is carrying Heisman buzz. Indiana is making national noise. And here's the kicker. In the last 5 games between these two teams, the visitor has won every single time. So who takes the spittoon this year? Can Mendoza and the Hoosiers protect home turf? Or will Michigan State play spoiler once again? And off the field, the noise grows louder. Curt Cignetti's name in the Penn State conversation. This is the Hoosier Tailgate on thehoosier.com. And it starts now.
And picked off up the sideline. Indiana, Asbury, walking them down. Woo! IU, America, they got a football team now.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Hoosier Tailgate here on thehoosier.com. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, and tonight we're going to set that stage for the showdown in Bloomington with Michigan State, the Brass Spittoon battle there for homecoming this Saturday, 3:30 kickoff on Peacock, and it should be a dandy of a game, and weather-wise, it's looking a little shaky at the moment, but it's hard to believe that we've got chances of thunderstorms coming into the Midwest this weekend that also could forecast with some potential tornado activity. So we'll have to hope and pray that bypasses us on Saturday. And it's been a whirlwind of a day here in Indiana. The Hoosiers ranked number 3 in the nation, highest ranking in program history. Fernando Mendoza now firmly in the Heisman Trophy conversation. And off the field, we had all the noise that was going around with Coach Cignetti and Penn State firing James Franklin, which led to the noise of all of a sudden Curt Cignetti's name being mentioned as a prominent, I guess, solution for Penn State. Then add to the fact that Indiana is playing the Brass Spittoon this weekend. And oh, by the way, we've talked about the last 5 games in the Brass Spittoon. The visiting team has won. So you've got that in the forefront of the conversation. And of course, Coach Cignetti said on Monday, you rip off the rearview mirror because you only want to look going ahead. Going forward, nothing in the back rear view mirror, of course. And again, we were able to, get Cignetti in his Thursday, and we'll talk about that here in a second about what's all transpired with him and as it pertains to the job at Penn State. I'm going to move my camera here. And the Hoosier administration kind of given a not so fast reaction in that one. So it's an interesting day, to say the least, over the last 3 or 4 hours. But homecoming Saturday, as we have already stated, there in Bloomington, 3:30 kickoff. We talked about the Fernando Mendoza being in the driver's seat, I guess you could say, in the Heisman Trophy candidacy right now. that all is always fluid. It's a matter of whether or not he continues to have the production, and Indiana can keep writing the story of this season. Now that they are 6-0, they're number 3 in the country. There were some polls that had Indiana as number 1. There were some pundits that had Indiana number 1, although they were soft and cold on Indiana for the better part of 2 seasons, especially last year when Indiana was 11-1. And the talking point, Indiana did not beat a team that had above a 500 record and so forth and so on. But, you know, at the end of the season, it makes no difference. But when you played a team, not all of them had a losing record at the time. So, again, that was been the conversation of the week with that as it pertains to this Hoosier football team. And then you look at, like I said earlier, the last 5 games of the Brass Spittoon has gone to the visiting team. And that in itself, when I saw that, I was like, whoa, that kind of grabbed my attention. And there would be nothing more that Jonathan Smith at Michigan State would need is to get a victory on the road against the number 3 ranked team in the country and recapture the Brass Spittoon, because he's coming here with the seat that he is sitting on a little hot right now. I mean, even in the papers in East Lansing, they're already talking about who would they go and get to be the next head coach at Michigan State if the administration moved on, which I think is a cheap move. But again, that's the news media, and they need something to write about. And right now, he hasn't gotten it done in their eyes, and Cignetti's the reason for that aspect of things, because everyone around the country is looking at this and going, Cignetti's done this in a year and a half. Why isn't Penn State doing this? Or why isn't Michigan State doing this? Or why is so-and-so not doing this? Because all those schools that I just mentioned probably have better resources, stadiums, you know, all the back behind the scenes resources better than probably Indiana does. And yet Indiana's doing it with kind of less. And so that has made a big impact on the national scene, especially against coaches and administrations, and wondering why they can't get it done with the resources that they are given when theirs is better than Indiana. And Coach Cignetti has done it within a 2-year window. So that has played a big part of it. But the last 5 games of this series has gone to the visiting team. And if you remember last year, Indiana was down 10-0 and then, you know, basically rattled off 47 straight points. And they did not play great within that first quarter. And then they caught fire. And then next thing you know, it was over. But that game was pretty much a stunner when it started, when Indiana was down 10-0 quickly. So anyway, with that one, but interesting dynamic with the Brass Spittoon, and that's the way rivalry should be. And then the biggest news of today, to calm all the fears of the Indiana University campus, as well as Hoosier Nation, all through the continental United States, as well as parts of different countries out there where there are Hoosier alums. The Hoosier administration steps up, mainly President Witten and Scott Dolson, and gives Sig a contract for $11.6 million in a new 8-year term, making him the 3rd highest coach in the country. I think behind Day, and it may be Kirby Smart, if I'm not mistaken, which is hard to believe that the Hoosiers, in that respect, Indiana has now got the 3rd highest paid football coach in the country. And I think it just goes to show you the commitment that Scott Dolson and President Witten had given in terms of this football program well before they went and got Cignetti. This was something that Scott Dolson has been working on for a better part of 45 years. And he was, formulating his own blueprint of what Indiana athletics was going to look like in the new era of rev sharing, all the different things that go into it, the paying of players, NIL, all those things. And for this administration, or should I just say President Whitten and Scott Dolson, to step into the equation now that Penn State has an opening and their head coach might be the hottest name in the land, they gave the old Lee Corso not so fast, my friend. And they wanted to make sure Coach Cignetti was really happy, like a really, really happy, type of scenario, almost to the point where, last year they asked him, hey, we want you to be real happy. And they gave him that contract as well as the coordinators and such. And then now it's, hey, Sig, we know you're real happy, but we want to make you really, really, really happy. And again, that's what they were able to do today. And here's the message from the man himself, Curt Cignetti.
My wife, Manette, and I love Indiana University, Bloomington, the state of Indiana, the people we've met. We have very strong feelings about President Whitten and Scott Dolson. And, we've accomplished a lot here in a short amount of time, but still have a lot of work to do. So I couldn't be more proud to be a Hoosier, and I plan on retiring as a Hoosier. And the way that this state has embraced us and our success in football has meant more to me than anything else. So I just wanted to get on camera and let you know that Curt Cignetti is going to work daily to make Indiana the best they can be.
And there it is from the man himself, Coach Curt Cignetti. And quite honestly, I was shocked that they went ahead and made this announcement today. I would have thought maybe they would have waited till maybe tomorrow. It's a little lighter work day in terms of the staff and the players, or even waiting until maybe Sunday. But I think what they did and what they wanted to do, especially with the players, because this is what I said, if you remember early this week, I said this will be the hardest job that Cignetti will have to do at Indiana is from here forward, because they've accomplished what they've needed to accomplish. They broke the ceiling on the national spotlight. And he's a hot name. When any job comes open now, they're going to mention his name. And so with that noise being pretty regular over the last 3 or 4 days on the outside, Sig's about, be where your feet are. And his mindset about putting a bubble around everybody and not letting them read the rat poison, so to speak, about themselves and patting themselves on the back and, not being satisfied. I mean, if you're satisfied where you're at right now, you're beat already. You want to be humble, of course, as he says, but never satisfied. And that's a huge point that he had to make. Be humble for where you're at and what you've accomplished, but do not be satisfied, because there's so much more that can be accomplished with this football team and program. And to turn that noise out on one side of it, that's what they decided to do today, announcing this contract extension, because I would imagine the calls have already came in about contacting his agent and getting permission to do so, and they wanted to put it to bed. And that's what they did, and I applaud them for that, as many of you have said right in here this evening, and I appreciate that. Not to get off on a tangent here with everything, but again, I think when they decided to make this decision, I applaud them for it. It's not an easy decision. It's a lot of money. It's a $15 million buyout. You're talking over 8 years. You're talking close to $90 million. And that's not even including the coaches' salaries, because you can bet right now that there will either be more openings this year for head coaches because last year was kind of a unique year. There wasn't that many, and I expect there to be many more. But you got to think that Bryant Haynes and Shanahan are going to be two names that these places out there may want to speak to them about the job of being a head coach. So you look at a school like Oregon State or UAB or, you know, what else that may come open. Their names are going to be mixed in those equations. And I think they'll pay them as well, trying to keep them around here and keeping the band together, so to speak. So big day, big news this afternoon. Now, one thing I do before we move on, I want you, Coach Cignetti was on Pat McAfee today, and I want you to listen to this dynamic conversation after they're off air between Sig, Pat, and himself about this. So let's go to that video quickly.
You're the man, Coach. We appreciate the hell out of you.
Well, you know, I love you guys, and I heard you talking about the Gateway Gators against Plum Mustangs the other day.
Hell yeah.
You know what I mean?
Terry Smith is interim head coach up there at Penn State. Gateway Gator, great.
And that's a great football coach. Let me tell you, he'll do a great job there.
As will you. That's the head coach at Indiana, Curt Cignetti. We'll continue digitally. Cheers. Goodbye. All right, we're still live. We're still live. So don't say anything, you know, we're still live. There's people still watching. Coach, we love you, man. Congratulations on all the success, and thank you for the time.
Gotta keep it going, man.
All right.
Hell yeah.
Can't wait to get back down there, brother. Can't wait to get back down there. Maybe stop
Glad
by
you're
the
in our
house.
state. I'm glad you're in our state. You're my homeboy now.
Hell yeah.
You're damn right. I'm glad you're in our state, brother.
You're my homeboy now. And I'm going to play the other video because remember, Pat McAfee last Friday was in Oregon, live on scene. He had Nick Saban on the show. And Nick was talking about this game between Oregon and Indiana. And listen closely as he gets back towards the end in this segment.
One thing that's going to be important in these games, this game to me, is teams that play them like Iowa play split safeties, and they struggle a little bit more because it forces them to run the ball. Well, if you get behind the sticks, then that running the ball stuff doesn't work so well because you stay behind the sticks. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely. You look
And
amazing.
I know how my boy Dan Lanning will try to play him, so they're going to have a challenge from that standpoint if they can stop the.
I know how my boy, Dan Lanning, is going to play them. And I believe that Cignetti was saying to Pat McAfee today, "You're my homeboy," was reference to that comment by Nick Saban on his show a week ago. Because remember, both these guys work for Cignetti, and there's no questioning that. I think Nick respects Sig, but I don't necessarily think him and Sig are, I don't know, necessarily buddy anymore, or cordial, respectful, but not like Saban is with Lanning because of, like I said, my boy, Dan Lanning. Well, your boy got his you-know-what kicked. So chalk one up for the old-timer. But anyway, I thought that was a unique thing that we saw this past weekend with that as well. You know, some things we want to discuss here tonight. We can get to it real quick here. Power rankings came out, and Indiana moved up to 2 this week in the Big Ten power rankings. Ohio State's still on top. Oregon dropped a spot. Illinois is at 4. USC is at 5. So it'll be interesting. Good evening there, Mr. Music. Appreciate you coming along. Washington and Nebraska, Michigan, Iowa, and so forth and so on. Michigan State right now, 16th in power rankings. Penn State dropped all the way to 14, as Maryland also dropped quite significantly after their loss to Nebraska, which was a tough one. And anything. So it's not hunky-dory between. Yeah, I think that's pretty pretty obvious now. But I think it goes back to him leaving Alabama to go be the head coach at a Division II school. But hey, again, it is what it is. I mean, I just find it interesting. Those comments came out last week, but those, like I said, those are in the rear view mirror. Let's keep our eyes forward and our feet where they need to be in the present. But again, the power rankings, Indiana and Ohio State are 1-2 in the Big Ten. Right now, if college football playoffs started tomorrow, I don't think the Big Ten would get 4 teams in. Right now, I'd only see 3 of them, and that's Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon. USC has an outside chance if they run the table. Washington and Nebraska are about the same. Not quite sure if either one of those 3 play each other this year, but we'll find out. But I think if the field was set tonight, the Big Ten would only get 3 in, and meaning that probably the SEC would get 5 teams into the college playoffs, and then probably 3 from the Big 12 and probably only 2 at the ACC. But anyway, that's kind of where that stands right now with everything. Let's head into the Saturday schedule there for this weekend. You got Nebraska and Minnesota tomorrow night, FS1, 7.5 for Nebraska right now is the point spread. Washington at Michigan, that's a big noon kickoff game. 6.5 point favorite Michigan is right now. That is an interesting ball game because that's one I could see Washington potentially getting a win on the road in the Big House. That is a game to keep an eye on in that respects. And with that, yeah, that is correct. USC's got a big one versus Notre Dame this week. That'd give them a top 25 win because I don't think they have one as yet because of they lost to Illinois, and that kind of hurt them in that respect. But Purdue is at Northwestern. The Wildcats a 2.5 point favorite. That one on BTN. Ohio State's a 25.5 point favorite at Wisconsin on CBS. And, Luke Fickell's seat's got to be really hot right now. They've had a tremendous amount of injuries. They lost Billy Edwards Jr. I don't know if he's back yet. There is speculation he will be back at some point. They still have a trip to Indiana coming up here in about 3 weeks. But right now, they have the Buckeyes coming in to Madison on Saturday. Yeah, that is a home game for Michigan, New Life. That's at the Big House. Michigan State, of course, is at Indiana, 3:30 p.m. Peacock. So you'll have to have a subscription to view that game unless some local NBC station is going to show it because of that one may or may not be available if you don't have the subscription. Indiana, the most recent betting line, 27.5 for the Hoosiers over Michigan State at this point. Oregon has to travel all the way to Rutgers. That's a 6:30 game on BTN. And right now, Oregon is a 17.5 point favorite. So that's a tough task after losing a game. Now having to go back to the East Coast. They had just went to Penn State, won in double overtime. Indiana came in, got the win against them, and now they got to go play a very tough Rutgers team whose defense is pretty good. But they're a 17.5 point favorite. That will be on BTN. Penn State at Iowa. The Hawkeyes, 3.5 point favorite. New coach, new quarterback at the helm. That will be a game to keep an eye on and watch because Indiana has a trip to the College Station coming up. And this can galvanize a team. And remember how talented of a team they have there in Happy Valley. And while they may be out of the talk for Big Ten championship, the college playoffs, they're playing for a lot of pride right now. And they've still got some really good coaches on that staff. So that would be a game to keep an eye on. Iowa at home should be about worth 3.5 points. UCLA, which may be the outside of Indiana right now, the hottest team in the Big Ten, they are a 3.5 point favorite over Maryland. FS1 will have that game at 7:00. Big game. A game that Indiana, of course, will be playing the Bruins after this weekend, but also has to go out to Maryland and play the Terpshed as well. So you can see that while everything is well and good at this point in time, looking through the front of the windshield, Indiana still has a lot of games on the horizon, and tough ones at that when you think about who they may be playing against, especially where they're playing them at. They got the Bruins at home, but they're at Maryland, they're at Penn State, they're at Purdue. And so, again, I got a feeling that that's something that Coach Cignetti is being very, very candid with this group of kids. Now, the best thing about this group of kids right now is you got veterans. And I like their mindset. And I think Sig likes their mindset. And I think they do everything they possibly can to put themselves in the best possible position to win. And that does mean both on and off the field in their preparation. So that's what it takes when you want to go win a championship. When I was at Ball State in 1996, we started the year 0-3, losing 2 close ball games. One at Minnesota, we lost by 1 point. And then Central Florida, is that the game I can't remember. I think Central Florida came in, we lost that one, I believe. But we won 8 straight after that, and it was because we had a veteran team that didn't look in the rear mirror. They were more focused on the here and now. They went through the conference unscathed, and we won the Mid-American Conference Championship. So, again, that's what Indiana, this group of Hoosiers right now, I think Cignetti is very pleased with the makeup and the leadership he has in the locker room, that they got a lot of dedicated guys to doing the right things, to stack days, and to prepare and not worry about who they're playing, more so worrying about what they need to do to get their best effort out of each and every one of them. So some big games this week in the Big Ten, that's for sure, as we start this season off, the second half of the season off this weekend with the Hoosiers entertaining Sparty in Bloomington, 3:30 kickoff on the Peacock Network. And it's setting up to be a dandy of a game, but I know there's a high percentage right now of rain or thunderstorms in the area. I don't necessarily think it's an all-day type of thing in that regard. Notre Dame and USC, that could be a classic game. And I hope, in our case, USC beats them, because that's another way of putting the Big Ten up on another level in that respect. So let's go on here and look at some of the statistical aspects of this game coming up on Saturday. We've already talked about the Big Ten schedule and who's all in, and kind of where Fernando Mendoza's Heisman's odds are climbing in his favor at this point in time. I would believe Justin Sayin may be a candidate as well. Jeremiah Smith has got to be a candidate for the Heisman. That kid's a phenomenal player. And there are others throughout the nation, of course, and potentially somebody from the defensive side of the ball. You just never know. So we've kind of got that one aspect answered. And you got to respect the fact, uncharted territory for these Indiana Hoosiers. They've never been in this position, being a top 5 ranked football program, number 3 to be exact. And so this is all uncharted territory for all of them, including the fans, which I think are going to be absolutely crazy this Saturday in Memorial Stadium with them coming back. And remember, I think Indiana's got this game against Michigan State and Wisconsin at home. And they got Michigan State at home, UCLA at home, and Wisconsin at home. So only 3 games left at home for the Hoosiers in that respect. So we'll have to see what all that adds up to in terms of this game on Saturday. But looking at the statistical stats right now, comparing offense to offense, Indiana, of course, 44.8 to Michigan State's 29.5. Let's just call it 30. Their rushing offense, Indiana 241 to 131 for the Spartans. Passing offense, Indiana holds a 61.2 yardage advantage over the Michigan State offense. And then, of course, 502.8 for total offense, 331.7 for Michigan State. Now, one thing to echo is that Aiden Childs is in the questionable category to play this weekend. And therefore, we will act as if he is playing for the Sparty, but at the same time, he's still a questionable player for Saturday. Third down conversions, Michigan State 40%, not too bad for an offense. Of course, Indiana right now 54%. Difference in this is right now, fourth down conversions, Michigan State has gone for it 15 times, garnering 7, and that's a 47% rating there. You'd rather be around 50 or higher on fourth downs. Indiana is 22%, 2 of 9. And that's a that's a category that I do have concern with, because last year I think Indiana was pretty good on fourth downs, and this year, for whatever reason, they just haven't gotten the necessary yardage when they've gone for it, especially when they went for it early on in the season against the Old Dominions and Kennesaw States of the world, and that is something that I'm sure that there's been a focus on in practice. So we'll have to see if they, take the calculated risk to go out on fourth down. I think at this point in time, knowing that you're struggling on fourth downs, you're better off doing the proper thing and punting the football or taking the points if you're in the red zone at that point in time. That's my opinion as an offensive coach, looking at that analytical data there, but there may be other things going into it. We'll look how the defense of Michigan State does on fourth downs. Red zone, Indiana, 91% scores, 96% for Michigan State. So both schools are very good once they get in the red zone, at least coming away with 3. Indiana touchdowns, 76%. To Michigan State's 78%. So again, pretty decent of getting 6 points in the red zone. And it's kind of astonishing with Michigan State where they're at overall record in sense is that they're where they're at in this dynamic. And it's one of those things that it kind of an interesting thing that, that's not too bad statistics when you think about it, where Michigan State is at, but they have struggled. And that's the one thing that you have to realize is that they have struggled with that all year, getting W's in sense. Now, when we switch over here to the defensive side of the equation, as you can see, defensively, Brian Haynes and his defensive coaches have done a phenomenal job again thus far with this defense. 11.3 scoring to Sparty, 31.8. I mean, that's a 20.5 differential. That's huge in that respect. And you can see why Michigan State has lost some games because they're not outscoring anybody. And you would think if you had an offense averaging almost 30 points a game, you should win a fair share of your games, but their defense right now has hurt them thus far this season with everything. They're right at 3, they're 5-5 overall. Let's see here. I'm trying to see. Yeah, they won their first 3 games of the year. They beat Western Michigan 23-6. They went out to Boston College, or did Boston? I think Boston College came home to Michigan State. They beat them in double OT 42-40. Then they beat a 1AA team, Youngstown State, 41-24. So they were off to a 3-0 start, and things were looking good. And I think they had some defensive injuries that really hurt them. Then they lose to USC 45-31. That game was a little tighter than the score would indicate. Nebraska 38-27. Again, they made some key mistakes in that game. And then, of course, the most recent game, 38-13 over UCLA. And UCLA was up like 28-7 at half. So for whatever reason, the wheels have kind of fallen off this last 3 weeks for Sparty. But when you look at it, rush defense, Indiana, 86.6, 131. And then passing defense, Sparty giving up 238, 142 for the Hoosiers. And again, 229 total defense, phenomenal for Indiana. Third down conversions, phenomenal. They're only giving up 23%, while Sparty is around 45%. And then there's a big reason right there. Indiana has only had 8 attempts on 4th down. 2 of them, I think, were Saturday, and they're 4 for 8 on 4th down, 50%. There were 2 on Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, against Oregon. One was like 3rd and 9 or 4th and 9. They should not given that up. But Sparty right now giving up over 54%, 7-13. So that may look at Indiana offensively thinking while they struggled, they may take a shot. 89% in the red zone scores. Look at this, guys. Indiana has only had an opposing team in the red zone 6 times this season. 6 times. Crazy. 22 sacks overall in the year for the Hoosiers, 15 for Michigan State, which they are a bona fide good rushing the passer team up front especially. But they've had 15 on the year thus far. Indiana is a +7 overall in turnover margin. On defense, they've had 10 takeaways on the season. Michigan is a -3 overall. And that's another reason that the last 3 weeks has been hurtful for them, is that they've had some costly things go with that one aspect of things. If we look at some of the top players, you got, of course, Aiden Childs. So we know that he is a questionable for this Saturday. Again, good, solid quarterback, dual threat. He can run the football, does it well. He's very athletic. He's got a big time arm, and he's a guy that you must respect and keep in the pocket because he can hurt you when he gets outside of it. The running back they have was a kid that played as a true freshman and having a good year thus far. Frazier, averaging about 63.8 a game. Played last year for Michigan State, so he is a very good player. Not that guy. We want him on our team. Nick Marsh, one of the receivers, he started last year as a true freshman. He's a good one. He caught I think he had a touchdown against Indiana, 6'3", 205, and 649 yards, 4-star prospect out of Detroit, 340 right now 11.4 and 4 touchdowns. Bonafide outside guy that is the guy you got to be aware of, and he can make things happen. And then the guy that they brought in from Middle Tennessee State as well as Alabama, Omar Kelly, 6 foot, 188 pounder out of Alabama, 4-star prospect, 14.5 yards per catch, 1 touchdown, 347 yards. So those two are their big two as offensively speaking, of guys that they try to get the ball to on the perimeter. And they've done that quite well when they've had a chance. On defense, you got Isaiah Jones, 46, good player. 6'3", 238 pounds, 20 solos on the year, 2 sacks, 3.5 TFLs. He's got 1 interception, 1 quarterback hurry, 1 forced fumble. This kid's a real deal for Michigan State, and he's out of the IMG Academy. Another guy there, Wayne Matthews, number 10. He's a transfer from Old Dominion. Oh, kind of an interesting thing there, 6'1", 191. He played in 35 games for Old Dominion. He's out of Maryland. Here's a kid, Cat Malik Spencer. We knew of him last year. Very good football player. 17 solos, 3 TFLs, a forced fumble. He's out of Buford, Georgia, but he's a really good player. You're going to see him into the ball. Up front, Jalen Thompson, 6'3", 260. This cat can play. 2 sacks on the year, 4.5 TFLs, 3 quarterback hurries, a pass breakup. He's out of Detroit Cass Tech. Now, I think he may have been banged up a little bit, and I don't know what his status is, and I think it was him. But the other good one they've got is this Alex Van, I think it's Van Summeren, 6'5", 295. He's up out of Bay City, Michigan. 4-star prospect, started a year ago, good sized guy inside, 295, moves well. He's got 1.5 stacks, 1.5 TFLs, 11 solos, but this cat can play as well. And you're not going to be surprised by this Michigan State defense. They've had some injuries the last 3 weeks that has prevented their defense from playing at their potential. They're getting some guys back. Jonathan Smith said last night in his radio show that Aiden Childs, the quarterback, was still questionable. I think he's got an Achilles, if I'm not mistaken. He was questionable, although he has been practicing this week. And then defensively, they were getting, I think, 3 guys back this week for Saturday's game. So that could be a huge boost for their defense that they've struggled with, because their secondary has been a little bit on average, if not below average, and they've been victimized some. And I think they're getting 1 or 2 guys back in the secondary, and I do think they're getting a guy back from up front. If that was what I was thinking here. Let's see. Eye test says something else. Yeah. Again, turnovers makes a huge key. They're, like I said, Indiana's a +7, Michigan State's a -3. Yeah, there's some of that aspect is a interesting aspect for that. Well, let's get through the Sparty first, because UCL is playing great. We'll find out what they do this weekend. Their 2-week holiday may be up. Maybe they come back to earth a little bit, but we'll find out. And again, the Big Ten is always going to be a weekly test no matter who you play. It's not you're going to be exponentially better than so-and-so and so-and-so. And Indiana will have to play a good game no matter what, no matter who they line up against, because that's their makeup. They're a team that is a complementary offense and defensive team that likes to do things in the sense that they've now become more of a ball-controlled offense, as opposed to a offense that likes to go at an up-tempo speed. That's one thing that I've noticed this year. They did a lot of things at the line of scrimmage a year ago with Curtis. This year, it seems they're more deliberate in their approach offensively, with huddling more so than anything. And they've been 33, 35 time of possession thus far in some of these games, which time of possession is one of those statistics that can be a little bit misleading because teams can score fast as opposed to what they were doing 10 years ago. So, but Indiana's won the time of possession pretty much all season long. And last year, I don't necessarily think they were up there in time of possession because they did do some quick scores, but they were running more up tempo a year ago. And the one thing that hurt Indiana, I think, on Saturday, Oregon, when they were doing what they call NASCAR or fastball, when they're really going fast as they can, that gave Indiana some problems defensively. And this Michigan State team, they are a up-tempo type of ball club, and you bet they're going to try to do things at that quick tempo because they saw that Indiana's defense had some problems with that against Oregon. So that's one thing that I'm sure they were addressing this week on how they're going to play a team when you get them going fast, because number one, you cannot substitute if a team's going fast. It's impossible. That's number one, unless they send a personnel change in. Number two, you've got to have a defense that you can just call it and run it. So Aiden Fisher knows that if it's a fastball type of tempo, he knows the call, and he's in charge. So these are all things that I'm sure they had to address this week to get themselves ready for that particular style of offense. And that's one thing that this Michigan State offense will try to do on Saturday. I bet you $10 that we will see an up-tempo, fast-paced offense from Michigan State to see if Indiana's addressed it. And because if that's something that they can put Indiana in a specific front and coverage, that's an upper hand to Michigan State, because Indiana likes to show a particular front, particular coverage pre-snap, and that changes at the post-snap. And so that gave Oregon some problems Saturday, especially Dante Moore. And it can give the same thing, especially if you got Aiden Childs in there. The one thing is if he's kind of a 90% guy and he's got a bum wheel, you're probably not going to see him take off and run too much. So they may be playing a guy who's playing his first career start Saturday, and how much tape they got on the cat, I don't know, because I think Childs got hurt late against UCLA, if I'm not mistaken. And I think they were off last week as well. I got to see here. Hold on. Well, I take that back. They played UCLA last week when Indiana was out in Oregon. So they did not have a bye. And I don't think they get a bye all year. Wow. Unless it was earlier on, but whoa, that's crazy. But anyway, take a break here real quick. Stay right here with us here on the Hoosier Tailgate on thehoosier.com. Appreciate you joining us. If you're watching us via YouTube or X or Facebook, whatever platform that is, appreciate you a ton. Remember, if you missed the show, you can always find it on YouTube. Just search for Hoosier Tailgate, as well as on all podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple. If you need something to listen to on the way to the game on Saturday, by all means, download it, take it with you, and you'll be ready for the game that Saturday afternoon by listening to the tailgate on your way to Beantown. But hey, we're going to be right back, right, with more Hoosier Tailgate right after these messages.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets You ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors? Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. 1. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code ON3. 2. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. 3. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code ON3 when you sign up. Make this college football season 1 for the history books. Make it legendary. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3 and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPNBY or text HOPNY 467369, New York. Call 1-800-NEXT STEP, Arizona.
Welcome back to the Hoosier Tailgate on thehoosier.com. We appreciate you joining us here on this joyous Thursday evening. The big news out of Bloomington, Curt Cignetti inked a new 8-year, $11.6 million contract, taking him officially out of any hot list on this coaching carousel, as his name had been circulated amongst the Penn State job for the better part of 3 days. And as few were here with us earlier, Coach Cignetti basically said that he is looking to retire a Hoosier. He appreciates how him and his wife have been received, not just in Bloomington, but throughout the state of Indiana. And I think that says a lot about this state and the people in this state. A lot of good people, a lot of great people in this state, especially in and around the college scene. There's always great people in the college ranks on campus and such, and different varieties, different you-know-whats and things of that nature, but there's something special about a college campus. There just is, and it's nice to see that Coach Cignetti feels that from Indiana and the people of Indiana enough that he's willing to call this his final coaching spot with Indiana by inking that big-time deal today. Excuse me. But yeah, that was the big news this afternoon. Broke around 5 o'clock, I would say, but it's good to have that done in your back pocket. We've talked about this Michigan State team a little bit here. Feel like they're going to get some kids back this weekend. Uncertain with their big-time quarterback, Aiden Childs. He's questionable for this weekend, but fairly capable team. Good offensive coordinator, good defensive coordinator. Jonathan Smith, ton of respect for him. He got the Michigan State job because he wanted Oregon State. I mean, you talk about a place that's not easy to win out, Oregon State, he's won at. And unfortunately right now, it's just not working in his favor at Michigan State, but I don't think they're as far off as probably many people think they are, because I do think they've got a good nucleus of players. It's just about putting together, but let's keep it one more week before they find themselves out there. Again, any questions you may have, by all means, put it in the chat box. If I can see it and I can give you an answer, I will. And again, remember, we are with you each Monday and Thursday night, 7:30 each week, right here on the Hoosier Tailgate on thehoosier.com. And you can normally catch me every Thursday with Jim Coyle on Indiana Sports Beat Radio talking about these Hoosiers, recruiting, all that good stuff. Their recruiting has gone well. It's going even better now. Got some decommits from Penn State out there that I'm sure Indiana is trying to get them in on campus. So this will be a big weekend for recruiting. And right now, with everything in Indiana's favor, the brand is very alive right now. But let's head over into the coach's video room. Let's take a look at this Michigan State team. And again, remember, this is a team a year ago that Indiana was down by 10 to early on, and they end up running up 47 straight points after that. So it's one of those things, is like I said, this team is got some talent and started 3-0 this year, and they've lost the last 3. And as I said earlier, the Brass Spittoon, Indiana was able to capture it last year, but over the last 5 years, the Brass Spittoon has gone to the visiting team. So keep that in mind. Don't know if that's some type of omen that needs to be broken. It is getting closer to Halloween, and that's kind of a crazy thing to think. But let's take a look here at Michigan State. Now, this is their defense against UCLA. And what you're going to see from these guys most of the time, this is like, I call this ace, because the tight end's backside left and 3 receivers up to the top there. I call this a ace twins look, because you have a nub tight end, and a nub tight just means he's all alone on the backside. So you're getting what I call an over front here from Michigan State. So imagine this guy's shaded in a 1 technique. He's in a 3 to 4 eye, stand up outside. This is their corner. Backer, corner, nickel, safety. So this is on a 2nd and 10. Let's let it roll here. Michigan State's doing a quick screen. You got numbers out there. He threw it out there because the way he looks at this, even though you look out there and say, well, coach, they got even numbers. They've got 3 over 3. Well, you see where these guys are at depth-wise. Hey, they're going to take that, do it, and see what they can get here. And Nico gets it, throws it out there, able to get a 5-yard gain and go on to the next play. Again, a little bit of a bunch formation. Indiana does this. This is an over front again. 2 down. You got some stand-up ends here. And 2 backers here standing up inside. And then, of course, you've got that safety back here. It's probably going to be a man look. And these guys look to be manned up. This guy probably has back his side, and this is a free look. So kind of a cover 11 look. They get him to move. And again, when you're in man coverage, they're trying to run a mesh route, kind of a crossing route, good route to run here against man coverage. But you can see this rush that they got going on here. Got some guys that can quite get it. They're only bringing 3. They're dropping 8. And they keep him in the pockets 3rd and 5, and they stop him. So now they're back down there again after getting their points. More traditional look here. Indiana runs this set, tight end, 2 wide outs, a single wide out. They're in a pistol look. And again, you got this time, tight end being up here. Michigan State isn't what I call an under front, but they really haven't changed their line up as it was before. But this is more of an under front, and this guy's going to come down because he's got to cover that C gap out here, because otherwise you could exploit that right now, and I'm sure they will. Again, on the backside here, playing more of a kind of a true matchup man, and they're going to cut what I call cover 1 again. This guy's free. He's coming down because he's got the tight end, and you can see how they're playing that there. So a lot of man-to-man. Ooh, man, that was a move. Big run by UCLA's running back there. Okay, down here in the red zone, it's kind of more of an unbalanced look with the tight end here, 3 wide receivers. So you got a true unbalance, short edge at the top. Let's see what they do. Uh-oh, they're going to run a little trickery. So they're going to run like a counter look. Yeah. Well, this is great scheme. Interesting. See, they knew that they were in man coverage and they knew this in treating this back. They call this flare control, and he's kind of peel off on him. Knowing that, they run the counter. It's like walking in the end zone. And he literally does here. See if we got, here's an end zone shot of it. You can see right now, this guy's blocking back. These two are going to go for there. He's looking to kick first out or turn up. I'm sorry, this guy is doing that. This guy, again, is going to be the cleaner upper on counter, and whap, touchdown. Great play by UCLA. They caught him in a front that they knew they were going to be in. Okay, here's again, 1st and 10. More of a shell look here now from Michigan State. Looks like they're going to bring a hot from the boundary, but he pulls up because he sees pass, I think. And this is where they get a sack. I guess this is the coverage sack. Nobody's open here. But this is a good look. When you get this coverage like that, you know, you get that umbrella coverage. This is when you can run it in here. They're going to throw it. Michigan State just beats them. It's a big sack. Let's see. What'd you have to say, Chris? Well, you don't have to worry about that anymore. He's staying here. This is one thing that I noticed when they get into 3rd and long, they like to get in this crazy front where they've got basically just a 3-man front. They got 8 deep. They kick it out to the running back. He almost gets 16 yards and sets up a short yardage situation. So you could see that in situations. There it is. 3-man rush, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 under, 3 deep concept. One more play here. Let me take a look at some of the defense. They're going to cover 1, kind of showing a shell, but you can see, quite frankly, it's man. The free safety is replacing the linebacker because they dropped the end. So it's kind of like a zone blitz concept. And they run an over drag route and hit their big time receiver over the middle for a big play. Pretty much standard defense down here in the red zone. Michigan State does a good job here, but see what they have a tendency to do with their man, they lose this back out of the backfield because the linebackers got to have him. And that's what happens with man coverage is you can screw it up real easily here. Let's get down to some real quick. Take a look at Mr. Childs and this Michigan State offense. Kind of total empty. They're going to take advantage of numbers here. 3 over 3. You got 2 over 2. And he's going to go to the top because they're going to run I think, a double slant. And the guy drops it. I mean, if he catches that ball, that could be a big, big hit. Okay, now they're in the 3-by-1, so similar to, standard to what you see from every offense. Another drop back, 3rd and 4. This is a zip because this guy's running an out cut. He's getting 8 up. UCLA brings a delayed blitz as they see the back. He drills it in there, and then he gets extra yardage because he broke the tackle. Okay, they will go under center at times. Probably something like a speed sweep here. Could be something like that. So State, they're kind of playing their One high look, bringing a safety down. Speed sweep. There it goes. Yep. That's a great job of this tackle up here. Watch this tackle. Watch this guy right here. This guy is way outside, and this tackle does a hell of a job of hooking this guy. I mean, he's almost a gap and a half wide on that kid, but that kid does a hell of a job. That's a great job by him. What's his name? Moore. That's a hell of a job by that kid. Again, in their standard formation, nothing, UCLA kind of all defenses nowadays are playing a lot of cover, what I call cover one, man free. Playing that 4-man box. They'll bring a guy down. Safety's coming down, and you can see him rolling here because the tight end came over. Now he's going to go. He's going to take the tight end into the boundary. And this is where Childs is a threat because you got a quarterback run on versus man coverage. He's unaccounted for, and he's able to get the first down. They'll do a lot of simulated going ghost coming back. 2nd and 12 here. UCLA going a zone fire defense here, bringing the guy off the edge, but they're dropping this in. They kind of throw a little bit of a tight end delay right over the middle and catch them because of what they did there. So nice design play there by State. Down here in the red zone again. Kind of again, that ace twins look. Here's the tight end. So he's a nub tight end. UCLA has gone to their bear front now. More of that blitzing style front. They go ahead and run it and gash them. Do a good job of pushing. That's great. This is really good on inside here between the center. These three have got those three. So you got this, and this with one of those two getting up here. You got this guy coming with the center. They're really working to him, and he's trying to get that guy cut off. They're letting those other line guys go, and they do a great job, and that's boom. So they were, let's go one more. Pretty good there. That's the one thing that I've noticed with him, the way he holds the ball. It's kind of loose here, and they were able to hit it out of his hands, and that's one of those big turnovers that they got in that game against UCLA. So, again, very good football team. Their scheme is not overly complicated. It's very sound in what they do offensively and defensively. They're going to have their little looks that they're going to change up. If Indiana plays against Childs and he's healthy, they're going to have to be very aware of his ability to contain and break the pocket. Got to stay in coverage because the kid will throw it over the top of you if you come out of it too soon. And then, they're going to have to kind of have the same mentality that they had against Oregon, trying to keep him in the pocket like they did Dante Moore. And that was one of the good things they had on Saturday is Dante Moore was really ineffective in the scramble part of his game. Now, Childs is another one of those guys that can do that. So, again, Michigan State, while they're 3-3, they're getting some guys back. They're getting healthier. They may not have Childs. He's questionable for Saturday. But do not, and Indiana cannot, overlook this ball club. Now, if Indiana plays their game, and let me go back down here to down here, and where I looked at this from the perspective of what Indiana has to do. Dominant on both sides of the ball, O&D up front. The line of scrimmage, Indiana has to own the line of scrimmage. They did against Oregon, was a huge factor. First play, they get a sack on Dante Moore. Oregon had only given up one sack prior to that. They get a sack, and that changed the whole complex of that game. Rushing, Indiana needs to really come out and strive to have a big-time rushing game against Michigan State. They got to get Hemby, in the flow of the game quickly. And I like for seeing them rush for like 250. This is a game I think Roman Hemby can be a huge factor in, not just running, but as a pass receiver out of the backfield. And that's not to say that Black can't do it either. But you like for him to run and throw for 300 and get that 550 total yardage on the night and score about 35 plus points. Stay on schedule. Again, Indiana's when they're in rhythm and staying on schedule, that's when they're most dangerous. Again, Indiana, they need to attack downfield, exploit this Michigan State secondary. They've had trouble. They cannot be in a man-to-man against this Indiana offense. I just think with Surratt, Cooper, and EJ, those three are very difficult in man-free coverage, and that's where Indiana has had their most success, is when they've played teams that want to play man against them and they exploit them. And they did that quite well against Oregon. I do think you got to have your, how am I going to get the ball to Surratt type of plays, EJ type of plays, and Omar type of plays, so that you're, attacking and targeting a player to get him the football and not wishing and hoping. And I think they've done a better job of that here late. Win the money down on offense and defense, that's a standard thing. Again, when you're winning the money down from an offense perspective, that means that you're lining up third and medium or third and short the majority of time, which means you're having great efficiency on first and second down. That's going to have to be a big time thing. And same thing for the defense. When they're forcing a offense to be third and long, they are controlling the defense efficiency on first and second down, causing that offense to get off schedule. They did that quite well against Oregon. Put pressure on Childs or whoever's in at quarterback. That's a must. I'd like to see a defense, again, get at least 2 takeaways and no chunk plays, no big plays. Set up a score. Again, on special teams, they've done really good with that this year. I think Boyd may be able to take one back against this Michigan State punt team. I just think there's an avenue there. If he can get a good run at it, there's an avenue for him to have a big play. And then continue red zone success on both O and D. We talked about that earlier. This Indiana defense has only had 6 opportunities in their own red zone all year. 6. That's 1 a game. I mean, that's crazy how good that is. So continue to do that. They are going to need that against this Michigan State team. And here's the thing with a team like Michigan State. Now I'll go because I've talked again way too much, but I just, I get a little fired up here. With a team like this, you got to get out and get on top of them. And you gotta beat them down from the start, because if you give them any hint that they got a chance, it'll be a dogfight. And that's the key component. They've got to get on State at the forefront and get on top of them and put your will upon them and force them to do what you want them to do on both sides of the ball, and just take their will away from them. And to the point, you got a team that's coming in here with 3 straight losses. They're going on a road against the hottest team in the country, ranked number 3, just paid their head coach a bunch of money. That's a huge motivational aspect of things, that they can come in here and spoil homecoming, recapture the Spittoon, and make Indiana go from the darling of the country at number 3 to dropping them out of the top 10, because they can't afford to lose to a Michigan State. Just can't. It's one of those games they've got to have, and it's at home, and that's the key to this game. Let me see here if there's any questions here or comments before I get off here. But guys, Mineral Bluff, Georgia. Glad to have you, Todd. Appreciate you coming on. Yeah, that's kind of an interesting comment there, Todd, but I appreciate it. And I do hope that the Sparty's in trouble with the stampede of bison coming. That's going to be a big thing. Michigan State red zone percentages, scoring touchdowns was like mid 70s. Indiana has only had 6 defensive opportunities in the red zone and been very good this year. Okay, let's see here. Yeah. Yeah, he figured last year he had to be a little bit of a rebel rouser to stir the pot and get people thinking that they can do it here, and not you're at Indiana, one of the worst D1 programs in the country, and you're telling us you're going to go win the Big Ten and get in the national spotlight. And so he wrote a lot of big checks last year. He cashed them all except 2. And he doesn't feel like he needs to do that this year. He's been a little bit more reserved in how he says things. He's been a little bit more down to earth, I guess you could say, in his way, how he handles things and things of that nature. So, but good news for him. Like I said, the biggest news of tonight outside of this club, number 3 in the country, Michigan State, Brass Spittoon. Remember, last 5 games, the road team has won. But today, Coach Cignetti signed a 8-year, $11.6 million contract. And again, his whole philosophy, be humble, but never satisfied. And that is the measuring stick that he measures this ball club by. And I guarantee it, if there's one coach in the country that can do this type of job, that's in front of him, because it's going to be a tougher job now, being number 3 in the country, coming off a win against Oregon. Everybody telling you how great you are. You just wrote a check for $11.6 million, patting your own, from that standpoint. And you've got a team reeling coming in that is 3-3, lost the last 3. The head coach is on a hot seat. They're already writing articles about who's going to replace him. And that's the type of game that you don't want to give them any chance, because if you give them any hope, it's going to be a dogfight. I can guarantee you that. Well, guys and gals, I appreciate you joining me again here on the Hoosier Tailgate. Remember, each and every Monday and Thursday, come join me for a little bit. We talk a little football. We talk a little bit of X and O's. We do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But most of all, we have a little fun. And I hope you guys enjoy it. And again, if you got any comments, keep putting them in there. I read all the comments in the comment section on YouTube and try to answer back as well. Those that are joining us for the first time, come back on Monday. Keep coming back, 7:30 right here on the Hoosier Tailgate on thehoosier.com. You can find us here and come join us, whether you're a diehard Hoosier or from the opposing team coming in to play the Hoosiers. Come on in. It's all hospitable here in Hoosierland. We welcome one and all. But for now, I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith. You've been watching the Hoosier Tailgate on thehoosier.com. Good night and have a great weekend.